This is a steal for the Steelers as they could look to re-sign a former second-round pick that has had a ton of success in Pittsburgh. My name is Peyton Kleppe, and on today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down the latest Pittsburgh Steelers reports and analysis regarding the Pittsburgh Steelers football team. Before we get into the latest news, if you guys are not already currently subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below. We are trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. Steelers are looking to add another wide receiver to their roster, and they could bring back a former wide receiver in Chase Claypool. In an article by Jacob Penturi, he does go into this option as Pittsburgh Steelers know Chase Claypool very well, and he did have a lot of success in his early stint in Pittsburgh. So obviously, Chase Claypool was a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers drafted in the second round, I believe in the 2019 or 2020 NFL draft. He had a lot of success in his first couple years. He's a big target, big Canadian dude. Mapletron was the nickname some people were giving him just because of his big stature. He was a huge red zone target for Big Ben in that era of the Pittsburgh Steelers team, but obviously, due to some of his antics on and off the field, I can remember a game against the Vikings where it was fourth quarter. We have a few seconds left in the game. This guy gets a first down catch, does some dumb celebration, which totally screws us and makes us not really have a chance to win the game. So, add that to some of his TikTok issues that him and Juju Smith-Schuster were having off the field, making a ton of dumb TikTok videos that we're just distracting the team rather than helping them. So obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers had enough, decided that, hey, we can move on from this guy. And, during Kenny Pickett's rookie year, I believe 2022, the Pittsburgh Steelers decided, hey, we're done with Chase Claypool and shipped him over to the Chicago Bears for a second-round pick. In Chicago, Chase really didn't have a lot of success. There was really nobody consistent throwing him the ball. I believe it was Justin Fields, Taylor Bajan or whatever that guy's name was. A few different quarterbacks. Obviously, the Chicago Bears have had a lot of trouble maintaining any sort of success the last couple years. And Chase Claypool just continued to have injuries, continued to have off-the-field problems, and continued to, steadily decline in his NFL career. But, after Chicago, he did kind of move around in the NFL, and he could look to find home back in Pittsburgh. With the team seemingly avoiding to move to bring in a true second wide receiver to complement DK Metcalf, Steelers organization will likely turn to some cheap options that could impact the team in a lesser role. This is setting the Pittsburgh Steelers up for a reunion with a receiver that could make his return to the NFL. Obviously, Chase Claypool, like I said, he could be a guy that could be, making his homecoming back in Pittsburgh, and we could give him a second shot, at least during the preseason, see what he can do. Like I said, he's a big athletic guy. He did have a lot of success in the early part of his career. He was racking up multiple touchdown seasons. I believe his rookie year, he had 700 or 800 receiving yards with multiple touchdowns, like 8 or 9 touchdowns, which, I thought he was debatably one of the top candidates for that offensive rookie of the year spot his rookie year. But obviously since then, he started to have some decline, started to have some personality issues. But, he was a young guy. He was young when he got drafted. I believe he was only 21, 22. So he was still young, still kind of learning how to play in the NFL, some of the responsibilities of playing in the NFL. But, Claypool's tenure really did end miserably in Pittsburgh, and during his third season in the NFL, the Steelers were hoping that he would become the team's top passing option alongside Juju Smith-Schuster and Deontay Johnson. But, obviously he did become a liability on the field and within the locker room, and we did flip him over to the Chicago Bears for that second-round draft pick, which did end up being Joey Porter Jr. Technically did end up being a first-round pick, as the Miami Dolphins did have to forfeit their first-round pick that year in the draft. So the Pittsburgh Steelers did end up getting their guy, Joey Porter Jr. But it would be funny if we could sign Chase Claypool and have both these guys on the same team, have the young guy covering the guy who we did trade, obviously, for. Would be kind of funny and would be a little ironic as we did flip Chase Claypool for the young buck in Joey Porter Jr. But, Chase Claypool did have some other little stints in Miami and Buffalo. I actually thought Chase Claypool was actually going to get back on his feet last year when he didn't sign in Buffalo, but I believe he did have a season-ending injury at the beginning of the season, which did cause him to get cut. And he has not seen the field since. I believe he signed with a Canadian football team a while ago. I'm not sure if he's still playing with them, but if the Pittsburgh Steelers think, hey, we still need some talent at that wide receiver position, we still need at least some competition for these guys as they all look to compete for that number 2 position, why not bring in a guy like Chase Claypool who could, finally keep his mouth shut? I mean, there's really nothing this guy can brag about anymore. He can't be going on podcasts talking about, oh, I'm a top 3 wide receiver. No, he's humble now. He knows this is his last shot. He knows the locker room. He knows Coach Tomlin. He knows GM Omar Khan. He knows all these guys already. It's just whether or not this guy is still at that elite level. He's still willing to give it his all, and he's still willing to, grow from what he originally was on the Pittsburgh Steelers when we did give him that first chance. Like I said, when we did give him that first chance, he was really looking good. If we do look back, this guy had 4 touchdowns against the Philadelphia Eagles. We did beat them in that 2020 season. I believe that was his rookie year. Like I said, dude had 4 touchdowns. That's not something that really anybody can do. I don't think any other Pittsburgh Steeler has had 4 receiving touchdowns in a game. Not even Antonio Brown could do that. So it might have actually been 3 receiving touchdowns, 1 rushing. I'm not particularly sure. I know it was 4 total touchdowns. But like I said, this dude's a big receiver. And, if he could play with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers who could really see the use in him, use him around that goal line like Ben Roethlisberger did, unlike how Kenny Pickett did, it was really tough with Kenny Pickett. The guy was still developing, still growing into his own, and we're really expecting him to throw to another guy who's still looking to grow and become his own in Chase Claypool. So bringing Chase Claypool back under some different circumstances with another veteran quarterback. This guy could make another, run for another roster spot. Whether or not it will be that wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 position, this guy could still look to contribute on an NFL team. He's a big wide receiver. He's a red zone weapon. And I do think if anybody's going to get the best out of him, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers, Coach Tomlin, and, the Rooney family. But unfortunately, that's all I have for you guys tonight on Steelers Digest. If you guys not already currently subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below. We are trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. Here we go, Steelers.